Welcome to Walking in Victory. This is your host, Shaun Moreno, and I'm here with a special guest. Always a special guest, right? I mean, we always have people on the show that's going to bless the show. And actually, man, this has been weeks, months in the making. You know, we've been talking, and the enemy's been working a little bit. He's caused us to delay this episode a little bit, but God's timing is perfect timing. And so, yeah, I just want to honor my guest and thank him for coming on. But yeah, I'm gonna give you a little bit of the resume for our guest today. He's a native of Youngstown, Ohio, not Hubbard, Ohio. He went to Hubbard High School, but he's a native of Youngstown, Ohio. He's a former defensive back for the Ohio State University. Yeah. He went from working as an operations manager at Walmart, managing other managers, to now campus pastor of Short North for Rock City. And he's a father, businessman, a follower of Jesus, and he's selling houses too if you want to hit him up. So.
You're right.
Welcome to the show, Pastor Shaun Lane. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Grateful for this opportunity. I'm glad that it finally happened.
For sure.
But again, I'm excited to be here and grateful that you even thought enough of me to invite me to your show. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I feel like we've been connecting since I've become a photographer for Rock City. And, I feel like we see each other, and
right.
we hit it off and we just talk from time to time. But the more I've gotten to know you, I'm like, man, we should hang out more. Like, you're a good person to be around. And I think we sharpen each other when we talk to each other.
Absolutely.
So
100% agree.
I'm always thankful to be able to capture photos of you baptizing people and on stage with the Rock City kids, blessing the families like you did last weekend. So I'm just thankful, man. So the reason I want to have Shaun on the show was, I feel like I've gotten to know him, and I know his story a little bit of what he's gone through as a football player and as a man, but I feel like, the show is called Walking in Victory, and we want to have people on that, are walking in victory currently and be able to share their stories and experiences of what they've gone through to help inspire other people as well. And so usually how I want to start off is just like, how was your upbringing? How do you know Jesus? Like, what is your testimony starting from when you were just a kid, and expand on that more and how you know Christ?
Yeah. So, again, grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. My parents were divorced early, so I don't ever really remember living with my dad living with us. I'm the second oldest of four, and my mom's, and I got a stepbrother and a stepsister, but it was four of us and just my mom. So we really grew up. Everything was about church, man. Pentecostal, Church of God in Christ, man. So it was, women only wear. I've never seen my mom outside of anything but a dress. No makeup. No, I mean it was a lot. It was a lot. But I'm grateful for that upbringing, where we went to church. My best friends were the people I knew in church. It wasn't the people I knew at schools, because I spent that much time at church, and even to this day, some of my best friends are the guys that I went to church with, growing up. But a real traditional church, always at church. As far as football, man, I had a passion to play football, but knowing that, one, it couldn't interfere with church. Two, my mom was supporting a family of four by herself, so it just a lot of times just wasn't feasible to even play. But yeah, it was still a passion. I knew I thought I was good because of the playing on the playground and other people telling me, hey, you're pretty good, and other parents would ask me, hey, why don't you come play for our little league team? Yeah, my mom wasn't having it though. So I didn't, my first time playing organized football was my 8th grade year of middle school. And that was because I snuck on the team.
Word.
Yeah, man. My mom wouldn't even let us. She didn't want us playing. She wouldn't let us play. So
Trying to protect you a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah. But I mean, going back to church, man, we just grew up in church, and that was all I knew really. It protected me from a lot of stuff that was going on in that area. Gangs were really big in the Youngstown area. But being in church, not having an opportunity to get in the mess, we weren't allowed to go hang out. I mean, we played in the yard with some friends, but outside of that, we weren't going to no skates. We weren't going to no movies. We weren't going to nothing like that. So I would call it somewhat of a sheltered life, but it really protected me from a lot of mistakes I could have made. But with that being said, at the same time, it was a real legalistic type of church where it was rules, and I can honestly say I didn't understand the intimate love of God. Wow. I knew the wrath of God.
Absolutely.
Like, you do this, and this is that's exactly like I was well aware of that. But that was my only real touch point with him. That was the only real understanding I had of him. So anytime I think when you have that viewpoint of somebody or something, it's hard to give yourself to them. Like it's almost like a forced type relationship,
right?
Which I would do it because I knew it was the right thing to do, but I wasn't into it. Like, and then as I got older, it's like, man, this is impossible. It's impossible to live perfect because that's what I thought it was. Like, you live a perfect life. You don't cuss. You don't do this. You don't wear earrings. You don't wear jewelry. I remember when one time I was sitting there like, man, do I wear this necklace or do I go to hell? I remember literally thinking that, like, if I wear this necklace, I'm choosing between this necklace or hell. So, and that was just the perspective that I had, of church.
Wow.
And my upbringing. So, yeah, that was it. It laid a foundation, understanding of the Bible, and we only read the King James version. That's the only version you could read coming up. But you understood what you could, and then there was no children's church. So I understand the importance of that now, being a father. But growing up, I didn't really understand how important being able to receive the gospel on your level is or was. So I was getting it from an adult perspective for my child mind to try to digest and understand. So it was, I felt like church was a set of rules that if you didn't follow them, you was going to hell, if I can sum it up.
And it got to the point of even, man, if I wear this necklace, I'm sinning.
Yeah, going straight to hell. And it wasn't sinning. Wow. It was going to hell. That's I just related to, like, man, I recall one time thinking, like, I'm just going to have to go to hell, man.
Like, wear this necklace.
I'm just, just little simple stuff.
I want to have some swag, man.
I'm just going to go to hell.
By the way, you look swagged up right now.
Like, thank
Ohio
you, bro.
State,
Appreciate
sure.
it.
So, okay, that's very interesting and honestly refreshing also to hear, because I've also had kind of this legalistic mindset of that I'm honestly kind of shedding off even just the past year or less. Very much listening to like John MacArthur, who I really loved his teaching and his knowledge on the word, but at the same time I started to compare myself to other people. I started to kind of keep track of like, man, how often am I sinning? Or how often am I going to serve and volunteer? And I would catch myself. Or here's one of the things that God really helped me understand was like, I would look at other people who call themselves Christians, right? But I would see their lifestyle and I'd be like, they're not a true Christian. Look at what they're doing. I'm like, and I'm judging people with a critical lens rather than seeing in the way Jesus would with the lens of grace. Because Jesus never condemned people, besides maybe like the Pharisees who were blatantly just legalistic and hypocritical, but like people who were caught in their sin, he would just give them grace, because that's the ultimate cure for anything, for all this legalistic mindset, right? So I guess the question is now is like, growing up, getting away from that, when did you start to feel like, I understand the love of God and the grace of God way more, and it's freed me up? When did you start to feel that transition happen?
It took a while, man. I was I believe, in my late 20s, early 30s before I really understood that portion of Christ, like the grace, and that's really what he is, like grace and mercy. We don't deserve any of it, but yet and still he gives it to us. And that sometimes now I question, like, how can you read the Bible so much and miss that whole fact of it? You know, like just miss the whole fact that, you know, how he treated people, how much grace he had, even for those that were blatantly in sin, were caught in sin. You know, you think about the woman that they brought, and hey, whoever cast the first stone, you know, like even in that, like that experience, I think back to as we talk about that, there's a situation, and this church, I still give to this particular church. You know, my mom still attends. I still go to the church when I go home. But this particular situation, my brother had his oldest son had him out of wedlock, and they brought him and the girl up to the front of the church and had him sit in the front in chairs as they preached about fornication and adultery in front of the church. And my brother, who is now about to be 40, I'm not sure he's recovered from that still. Because
it's shame. It's shaming somebody, right?
Yes. I mean, it was tough.
And of course, it's like sin is sin. Like, we're not going to say it's okay to do those things, but it's literally about how you go about correcting somebody. We were talking about it this morning. I got coffee with some of my brothers in Christ this morning, and we were just talking about you can literally say the same thing to somebody, the same exact words, but by just your tone and your intention, it changes everything.
Changes it.
Like, I could say, I don't know, man. I could be like, hey, the way you said that to me, like, that really, I didn't like that at all. Or I could say, hey, man, the way you said that, it really didn't rub me the right way, and I didn't appreciate that. I mean, it's like the same thing I'm saying, but like my tone's more calm and graceful.
And as we think about that, are you saying it just to say it, or are you saying it for the person to receive it?
Exactly.
So, I mean, what is the context, or what is the purpose behind what we're saying? So we can let it fall out our lips, or so the person can actually hear us and learn and grow from it.
Right.
And I'm not sure that we always have that perspective in mind. We're just saying it because we think
for sure. And really, when it comes down to it, grace is the answer.
Yeah.
And the only way we can extend that grace, is to experience that grace for ourselves and spending quiet time with the Lord.
Yep.
Spending time in prayer to the Father, being in alignment with Him. Then we take that out and we carry it to the world, and we share it. And people go, man, why are you so kind? Or why are you so generous?
Yeah.
It's because Jesus, His Spirit lives in me, and I'm communicating with Him. I'm in alignment with Him. Because if I'm not in alignment with Christ, I'm going to get mad. I'm going to get stressed. Yep. I might go off on somebody. It's happened.
It's part of it, yeah.
But it's just about, aligning ourselves with the truth and washing our mind with the Word of God with the lens of grace, not legalism. Because that gets nobody nowhere.
That's good. The lens of grace.
Amen. So anyway, with that, okay, so yeah, you kind of grew up in this legalistic household. Couldn't wear chain jewelry, nothing like that. Then you start to get older, become a man, and you understand things, and you experience the love and grace of God when you're late 20s, early 30s. But let's rewind a little bit now, and let's talk about, hey, you said you were playing football in high school. You didn't even really think you were going to be that good.
Yeah.
At Hubbard High School, right?
Right.
But your junior year, you said you started to feel like, man, I could really play at a high level.
Yeah.
Expand on your football career in high school, and then where did, going to Ohio State and how that experience was.
Yeah, I would. Let me backtrack a little bit. So my dad, which while he wasn't around when I was growing up, still have a really good relationship with him, especially now. But he was like one of the stars of that city, of Youngstown. So everybody knew him. Like, everybody knew him. And I didn't know him for that. I didn't know he was this, big-time football player, Garcia Lane. So he went to Ohio State. He was a captain at Ohio State. He played in the USFL, played in the NFL. Like, I didn't know that about him.
This is your own dad.
Yeah, my own dad. Everybody else knew it, but I didn't. I just thought I was out there just fashioning everybody else. Just,
Wow.
So, and he didn't talk about it much either. But as I got older and started noticing I was pretty good at playing on the playground. And parents would ask me, "Hey, would you come play for our little league team or whatever?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't. I ain't even gonna bother to ask my mom. I'm not even gonna try it." But fast forward to 8th grade year, my mom raising us is us four. My mom, she's working, so she's leaving, early, coming in late. And I knew that if I do play football, I can get home before she's home from work. So she would never even know I'm playing. Like, so that's kind of the move that I pulled, going to practice every day, back home before. And the house that I lived in wasn't close to the middle school that I went to, because they just had closed one of the middle schools. So now they were having all the students go to another middle school. So I caught the bus there, but there was no bus after practice, because there was a bus after school, but not after practice. So you walking 5-10 miles to get home.
You did that?
Oh yeah, man, just to get home before my mom got home from, because there was no bus. So just hiking it home every day after practice, getting there before she got home from work. So she didn't even know until the day of our first game. Here I am, the starting quarterback, and my mom don't even know that I'm playing football. So we walked to the office and had my coach call her, just throwing a whim, a Hail Mary in the air. And she said, yeah. She was like, boy, go ahead. So I played my first year of organized football. Didn't even know how to put on the pads. Like, I had no idea. I had to have somebody help me put on the pads. But yeah, I realized I was pretty good. I played in my school shoes, because I didn't want to ask her to buy me spikes, because I knew that was a reason for her right there, boom, to tell me, no, okay, you're done playing. So I just wore my tennis shoes that, our colors were red and white. My tennis shoes was black and green, so I just wore those to play, because I, again, didn't want to put that additional burden on it, because I figured it was a short-lived little tenure. So that's my 8th grade year. Going into 9th grade, I'm like, yeah, okay, she let me play 1 year. There's no way I'm able to play 9th grade, because Friday night football, high school football is on Friday nights, which is one of our major church nights. So she ended up not even really questioning it. What she had initially said was, since I let you play a year, I'm gonna let your older, because I got an older brother. He was a freshman already. He's gonna be a sophomore. I'm gonna let him play. I'm gonna let them play. So he got to play, and I played, too. So, my freshman year, I started on varsity on defense as a corner. Yep, and then sophomore year, I was a starting quarterback at my high school. Yeah, it was called Woodrow Wilson at that time. And then the last name Lane. Again, my dad a lot of people knew him, so that name was recognizable throughout the city. People start recognizing it. So the coaches from different schools start coming and almost recruiting me to get me to come to their private schools. And there was one particular school that was a Catholic school, and they had just won the state championship. So they were big timers. Everybody knew about them. You seen one of those Letterman jackets. It was respect associated with it. And they wanted me to come over there and play. Now, it was a better school, better sports. It was a Catholic school, and it was also tuition that was associated with it. And they were like, you know what? We'll take care of that. So that was part of getting me to come there. But as fast forward through it, I remember being in 10th grade, my head coach at Wilson, he was also my English teacher. So he called me aside one day, and he pretty much called me out of class, walked out of his class and said, hey, I need to know what you're going to do, because I need to decide for my family. Because I didn't know that they was offering him a job if I went to that school. So there was all types of stuff going on behind the scenes. Whoa. And that was the conversation he had with me. Like, I need to know what you're going to do so I can decide for what I'm going to do for my family. I'm like, I'm 10th grade. I'm a kid. I think about it now, and I'm like, sure. So wow. Long story short, we tried to go to that school. In order to go, it's crazy. In order to go to that school, it's in downtown Youngstown. It's literally right by YSU. But you couldn't live in Youngstown and go to that school. You couldn't have an address in Youngstown and go to that school. So we ended up using the address, which I don't recommend for anybody. I'm not, we used the address for a lady that was at our church that was out in the city called Hubbard. So we used the address there. And so after Christmas break, my mom pulled us out of Youngstown City Schools because we were supposed to enroll at this other school. Man, we probably met with where my mom scheduled to meet with the principal of that school maybe 3 times. He scheduled it and canceled 3 times. And here my mom is having to call off work to go meet this gentlemen, we get to the schools, like, oh yeah, he can't meet. Again, after the third time of that happening, we literally left that school and went straight to Hubbard. And the thing about Hubbard was they had just had an undefeated season. Never heard. I didn't even know that city existed, honestly. And it was right there on the outskirts of Youngstown. But they just had an undefeated season. They had a player named Anthony Smith that was going. He had a full ride to Syracuse, big time player. I mean, he had a great career. He had won 2 or 3 Super Bowls in the NFL. Wow. So yeah, he was a really, really good player. But he was a senior. That was his senior year. So we left Ursuline, which is the name of the school, went straight over to Hubbard, ended up enrolling in there, and I was so frustrated because I wanted to be at Ursuline. I remember my mom saying, she like, God will work this out. And that's what she told me. And I heard her say it, but I just didn't believe it. I'm like, what? How's he going to work this out? I want to be at this school. And you just enrolled me in this other school. And yeah, get to Hubbard, and the rest is history. I ended up playing a more prominent position there. Played running back and safety. At the Ursuline school, I was really coming in as a defensive back and was going to be playing that because they had the top running back in the country almost in the country in my grade level. So, I mean, this gentleman, he was 6'2", 230 running back, and he had just ran for almost 300 yards in the state championship game as a freshman, as a sophomore. So I wasn't going to go there to play running back. I wasn't going to be a star by any means. I was just going to be a role player. But here I am at Hubbard now, and I'm on the scene, and their main guy's leaving because he's going to Syracuse, and I got dropped right into a perfect position. And as I shared with you earlier, man, it was real culture shock because it was a suburban school, and I was definitely the minority, which I never had been prior to being a Youngstown City school. So it was really a culture shock for me, but the people were just so nice and friendly. Like, if you watch movies, you have a perception of people when you don't know them, and that's where you're going to get it from. But it was nothing like that. And just some genuine people that was really looking out for the betterment and for what was best for me. So just grateful even to this day to be able to go to Hubbard and play at that school under Coach Jeff Begg, which I still talk to him now to this day. He did so much for me and my family. Like, even there's countless times he drove me down to Columbus once Ohio State started recruiting me. My mom had to work and I had to ride down. He would take off work, even though he was a teacher at the school, and drive me down to Columbus, for different events, man. So
God did work it out.
He worked it all the way out.
Your mom knew.
She did. She did. I didn't see it, but I'm grateful that he did, and that I was mature enough to sit back and watch it as opposed to bucket. I'm like,
absolutely,
I have to.
And so you obviously did some work while you were at Hubbard. You were running back. You ran for, I don't know, I saw it actually. I think I looked you up, man. I think it was like 3,000 or something.
Yeah, I had a little bit. I think it was like 30. So, like in 2 years. So I was only there for 2 years my junior senior year. I probably had about 3,600 yards. So
it's pretty good, man. And then you played defensive back. But but running back is not what you did. Played at Ohio State, right? So let's talk about being recruited at Ohio State and playing there and how that worked out.
It was so unique in a sense of them even recruiting me, because after my junior year, they were really the first school that came and see me. I'm sitting in class, they called me and say, you got a visitor, and it's Tim Spencer, which is the running back coach at Ohio State, standing in the hallway. I'm like, I had no idea he was even coming.
Wow.
So he get to talking to me, and the funny thing enough, Tim Spencer was a running back at Ohio State when my dad played at Ohio State. So he knew my family and everything. So it was a smooth. So they offered me my junior year of high school, and I committed to him right away. And this is literally right after they won the 2002 national championship. So it was an easy yes. Like, what, national champs? What you mean? And then it's Ohio State in Ohio. So I didn't even consider any other schools. When other schools start calling, I wasn't even taking their calls. So I committed as a junior. Going into senior year, I knew where I was going. I knew what I was doing. So I did what I had to do my senior year, and then now it was time to, take that next step and compete on a high level, not just a collegiate level, but a high collegiate level. You think about Ohio State University and the type of athletes they're pulling in. But yeah.
Yeah. So when you say you get there, you arrive, you're walking in as a freshman to Ohio State, and you see the facilities and the culture and everything there. Like, what was it like to experience that type of culture at Ohio State, and also being a believer as well? Because I'm sure you were meeting people who weren't believers as well on the team, and just describe, I guess, that whole experience of just like the culture, being a believer, and then playing on game days as well, how that was.
Yeah. So, I mean, you get there, and pretty much everybody that's there was a star at their school.
Mm-hmm.
So, the ability to stand out is, you know, you have to really fine tune your craft in order to really stand out. I mean, you got a few guys that came in, like I came in with Ted Ginn, you know, and he's probably one of the fastest dudes in the country. So people like him, they just stand out because they have that unique gift to run. But all the other guys there, all can run, all can jump. I mean, just some crazy athletes. So you get in and you experience that, and now you're trying to figure out, like, yo, where do I really fit in? Like, I can run, but I'm not the fastest. I can jump, but I can't jump the highest. I'm physical, but I'm not the most. Like, where do I fit in? I'm not the tallest. I'm not the big. So it was really difficult when I first got to try to figure out where I fit in at. Something that I did, and I can only imagine the level in which it is now for these high school players and these students that are in high school, or athletes that are in high school going to college. We had something that was called JJ Huddle. It was almost like it's like a blog posters type of thing, where it was like a modern day social media back then. But you had to go to a website to read it. And I spent too much time on it. I can honestly say that. And I would just read the comments of what people would say about me, you know, 100% associating my offer at Ohio State with who my dad was. Like, he shouldn't be there. Like, they should go after some other players. So I read so much of that, you know, that by the time I got there, I almost had that feeling like, yo, what am I doing here? Like, I probably shouldn't be here.
I'm
like,
an imposter.
Yes, I am. That's what I feel like. That dude right there did this. This guy right here was the number 2 linebacker in the country. Like, you're, you know, walking around the room with those type of guys. So it took a while for me to get beyond that mentality of, should I really even be here? You know? And that was my first real experience with mentally changing myself to be somebody that I wasn't, but I adopted who that person was and became it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make them, they're going to believe that I'm the most physical person here, because I wasn't the biggest. I was one of the stronger guys, believe it or not, even with my stature. I'm 5'10". I think I was 175 pounds, but I could still bench 360, 370. There, so I was I was one of the strongest. I was the strongest DB, sure, out of safeties and corners.
Wow.
So I'm like, how am I going to use this? So I'm gonna make them think that I'm the most physical guy out here, and that's the mindset that I adopted. So anytime there was an opportunity to run into somebody full speed, that's what I did, and then that's what they kind of start knowing me for. Like, guys wouldn't even want to line up with me because they're, oh man, not Shaun, because he don't know how to take it easy. So that's something I adopted. So I just start trying to be extra physical, which worked out. It worked out. And it was something I literally mentally adopted. That wasn't my playing style in high school. Like, I made tackles, I did this, but I wasn't known for blowing people up or, slamming people or nothing like that. So I just had to take it on to fit in.
But you kind of had to adopt that because now you're in another level. You're in D1 Ohio State. We're not talking like small school D1, right, like OU or something. We're talking about the Ohio State University, like national champions, yes, right? And you're surrounded by, you said, number 2 linebacker in the country. Like, being around that kind of environment forces you to get better and forces you to do what it takes to get on the field and to make an impact on the game. You're like, it's great because it stretches you, right? Like, I have to be physical. I'm going to take what I'm good at, my strength, and I'm going to use that and leverage that to be the best player that I can be. And so you did use that strength and you did play. But during your playing time, you had an injury. You sustained an injury here, and it was against Texas, correct?
Yeah, so I had a couple injuries, actually, when I was there my sophomore year. And I'll run this by you real quick. And I believe it's such a pivotal part of my career. And I really didn't need, God was so gracious enough to give me a look into what he was doing back then. And I didn't realize it until just a couple years ago. It was almost like an epiphany. So when I came in as a freshman as a corner, redshirted my first year, so I was a redshirt freshman. Going into my second year, I was number 2 on the depth chart, the number 2 corner. The guy in front of me was a senior. So I'm like, okay, boom, one more year, and I'm starting as a redshirt sophomore, which means I still got 3 years left. And I'm like, so here it is, camp. I'm a number 2 again. A guy come in, a freshman come in by the name of Malcolm Jenkins. He comes in, so he's right behind me. He's a 3. I'm a 2. Then we got the senior, that's a 1. The second week of camp, they come to my dorm. We stay in a hotel for like 3 weeks. They come to my room and say, hey, we need you to switch to running back. I'm like,
Excuse
what?
me?
Yeah, like what? Yeah, we're low on running backs. There's some guys that had gotten in some trouble that summer that got suspended. So there's probably about 2 or 3 running backs that wasn't even in camp. So they knew I played it in high school. They asked me to switch it over, and I'm like, reluctant, but I'm like, I'll do what I have to do for the team. So I said, yeah, okay. So I go and switch over to running back 2 weeks into camp. Camp is only 3 weeks, and then you practically getting ready for the first game. So yeah, got switched to running back. First game comes around, we win that game. Didn't play much, a little bit of special teams. Second game comes around, we playing against Texas at home. Vince Young is the quarterback, and it was a night game. It was rocking, man. That's probably maybe the loudest outside of the Michigan game that I've ever heard that stadium. It's like the first drive of the game, and that corner that was in front of me, the safety, gets hurt. I mean, not the safety, but the senior gets hurt.
Yeah.
And boom, who's in now? Malcolm Jenkins is in. He's in, and he started the rest of his career after that. Like at Ohio State, he ended up winning the Thorpe Award, which is the number 1 defensive back in the country, first round draft pick. But I was just on this, I sit back and I thought about that, like, that would have been me. Like if they didn't switch me, literally the second game of the season, he goes in and he's playing for the rest of the year. Not saying that Malcolm wasn't good, man. He obviously was an amazing football player. He just retired maybe a year ago after 14, 15 years in the NFL. But it just, you can't help as a person not to say like that could have or should have been me. So that was something that just stuck out to me. Then later in that season, running down on a punt, I tore my ACL. We was playing against Minnesota. So when you tear your ACL, man, that was it for the rest of the season for me. So that even that following season, it's 9 months before you can even start running on the knee again, let alone be comfortable enough to play football on it. So it was a good year and a half, almost 2 years to be even comfortable playing football again on a injured knee. So that happened, man. So that was kind of my introduction to real adversity. Not knowing, what I still had to come, I had to go through later on in my career. So,
yeah, I did not know that. Yeah. Malcolm Jenkins, man, I hope you don't have too much bitterness.
No, I don't, man. I don't. And I'll just jump in at this part in case we don't get back to it.
Yeah.
So, just recently, like over the last couple years, when we had COVID and all that, racial tension and everything going on in America. For the NFL, there was a spokesman. And that spokesman, the person that spoke on behalf of the players in most cases, was Malcolm Jenkins. And I seen that, and I said, Lord, I wouldn't have been that person. Like, could he have made me to that? Yes. I said, but my personality, Malcolm was an outspoken person. The first day he got on Ohio State campus, he was barking back at anybody that said something to him. That was his personality. And then when I seen that happening, this couple years ago, where he was the voice for all the NFL players, especially the black NFL players, African American NFL players, I said like that wouldn't have been me. I wouldn't have stepped up in that spot. I would have been okay. Not saying I wouldn't have spoke up, but I wouldn't have been the first one to jump to the mic like he did and be the voice for people, regardless of what it cost him at that time. That wouldn't have been me. And that was epiphany to me. Like, that's why it wasn't for me to be in that spot because he was the one that was being prepared for that moment right there. And I'm like, boom, it just made sense to me like that. Like, yeah.
Then that's the sovereignty of God at work.
Yes,
and
man.
then him revealing that to you as you've gotten older. that gives you peace.
Yeah,
and gives
it
you
really
rest.
does, man. It really does. And I'm talking about, when Malcolm got in that game and and he starting, that was 2000, 2005, 2006. Here we are, it's practically 2020, and I'm just getting this lesson. I'm just now learning it, man.
And hey, it just goes to show, man, it takes time for the Lord to work in our heart and be sanctified. And for anyone that's feeling like they got to get in a rush to be holy,
I know.
You are holy right now in Christ.
Exactly.
You are just as righteous as Christ is if you have put your faith in him. And it's not about legalism, right? It's not about, man, I need to get to this certain level to be on this guy's level, to be on his holiness. We're not comparing men's holiness. We're talking about God's holiness.
Good. That's good.
And so that's a good lesson to learn. But you said it took you like 2 years almost to get back to the field.
Mm-hmm.
You get back to the field, you start playing again. How long was it until the game against Texas happened again? It's Texas.
Yeah. So we playing against Texas. It was actually my very last game as Ohio State Buckeye. I had already graduated. I had my bachelor's degree, and this was just a bowl game afterwards. So it was a Fiesta Bowl out in Arizona. So I was finishing up that game, and then I was getting ready to try out for the NFL. I knew I wasn't going to get drafted because I didn't play enough. I didn't have enough film or whatever, but I felt confident in the fact that I would get a chance to be a free agent and get picked up by somebody. Mm-hmm. So here we are, my last game as a Buckeye. Mm-hmm. And we out in Arizona, and I wake up that morning and I share the story in this way that, I had a unique sense of gratitude that morning that I hadn't had before. Just thankful for the simple things like being able to breathe, being able to walk. I remember sitting up on the edge of the bed and just sitting there in it, and I'm like, man, this is really amazing. Like, the game was in the evening, so I'm like, I really get a chance to do this. I've really been gifted with skills and abilities to run, to jump, to put it all together, to all this, and to walk, to breathe, and all of it just started hitting me sitting on the edge of the bed. And then fast forward to later on that evening, man, we out playing against Texas. Second quarter of the game, I'm running down to make a tackle, and as I'm coming down, it felt as if everybody just moved out of the way, and it was just me and the guy that was running the ball. So I just try to run straight through him. So I'll break down and make tackle, but I just try to run straight through him. And if you watch the film, it was still a pretty normal tackle. It was, by all accounts. But when I hit him, it just felt like getting shocked by lightning. Like, I've never been shocked by lightning, but I can imagine that it felt like that. I felt the humming in my ears. So then I lay down, I'm looking up at the roof of the stadium. And, I hear the crowd go, ooh, when I hit him. I hear that, because I got him good. And then one of my teammates come over to celebrate when he picks me up to celebrate. And I asked him in shock. I said, well, AG. His name was AG. I said, where's my arm at? And he said, what? I said, where's my arm at? And he's like, it's there, man. It's there. It's there. And then at this time, the trainer's already running out on the field. So he lays me back down, and by the time he laid me down, the trainers are to me, and I can't feel nothing on the right side of my body. My leg won't move. My arm, when I say it felt like it wasn't even there, like nothing. So as I lay there, they're trying to figure stuff out, and then by the grace of God, my leg just started twitching, and it came back to me. Like, it just did. Still don't know why or how, but it did. Mm-hmm. But my arm never did, and they rushed me in the ambulance to the hospital and run tests, and it comes down to being diagnosed as a brachial plexus injury at first, and, again, a brachial plexus is nerves that go from your arm and your hand to your spinal cord to your brain to get the message down. So when I hit the guy, in essence, pulled those, those nerves where I can't get the message from my brain to my arm to move or do whatever it needs to do. So the original diagnosis was that I stretched them. When you stretch them, they can grow back together. It takes time, but it'll grow back together. You'll regain your movement. So I was hanging on to that hope for months, months and months and months, thinking I still had a chance until I really went in and got a particular type of, I forget what type of test it was, but at that point they was able to diagnose it as an avulsion, meaning the nerves were ripped from the spinal cord and there was no repairing it at that point. So that's when I really had to grasp the concept that, I would never play football again. And it was beyond football at that point. It was, can you live a normal life now? Like it such a wide range and dynamic of being able to play professional sport to can you live a normal life and write and tie your shoe and eat. Like it's just such a wide variance that I experienced fairly quick. So
right, wow. Thanks for sharing, man. Like thanks for being vulnerable and
Oh,
open
yeah,
about
man.
that situation, because obviously it made an impact on your life, and
Yeah.
it's adversity that you had to go through, right? Because anyone that gets something taken away that we take for granted, and even that morning you were like, man, I'm thankful to breathe. I'm thankful to do all these things.
Randomly, man. Yeah.
You just never know, and you have to be thankful each and every day for what you do have. And so usually there's like a stages of like grief or whatever. Like you first you're like in denial, and then you're like angry, and then finally you get to a point of acceptance. But like maybe describe like those first few months or a year or whatever with like battling with anger, or like these thoughts of like, why me? I'm sure they kind of crept in sometimes, and also not just that, but also expand on, man, how did you get through that adversity and to have the mindset that you have now with your situation?
Yeah. And it's strangely enough, most people would think that right after that I ran straight to God. Like that's the typical story, but that's not mine. So I was just, I was hurt, I was bothered, didn't know who I was, because at that point I built my reputation and everything I knew about me to be a football player. And that's how I identified myself. The stature in which I was built and everything. Like that's just who I thought I was, man. So I have all that stripped away from now. You with somebody you don't know. That's kind of what it felt like. So I started, I would just, some of my teammates live in the same apartment complex. So I would try to hang out with them when I had a chance and be drinking and stuff and just hurting, man. Just hurting, not just hurting mentally, but it's a physical pain that's associated with any type of nerve damage. So going through that as well. So constantly in pain all day, every day. Not being able to do much for myself. It was hard, man. And I talked to my wife. I was dating her at the time. We've been together for a long time prior to marriage. But she was telling me, she said, you shared the story as if it was just a little blip. She's like, no, you went through it, because she was there with me the whole time too. And she's seen the down moments, the moments in the bathroom on the floor crying, like just not knowing why, not understanding anything. I think one thing that really saved and helped me get through that season of life was, me and my now wife. We had my oldest daughter when I was a junior at Ohio State. So at this time she was maybe 2, going on 3. I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't work. I didn't know how to. I was right-handed, so everything I knew I do. So here I am. I just couldn't. I couldn't do anything. In a sense. So my wife, my girlfriend at the time, she had to work and bring in money. I had no income coming in. No disability, nothing. I had literally nothing. So she was working, taking care of the household while I stayed at home with our 2-year-old. And that right there, I can honestly say, is the thing that I feel got me through that season of life, because I knew she relied on me to be there for her when she got up in the morning, to get her, warm her up something to eat or get her some cereal, whatever it was. So that's what got me through that season, man. That was the only value that I found in myself, was being her dad. So that got me through it, man, before I really even start making any form of recovery. That was a rock. That's the only rock that I felt I had to hold on to, and the only value as a person that I had was being her dad. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and there's a lesson in that of like, if you're feeling down and upset and like depressed, as much as it goes against every fiber of your body, go and help somebody. Like,
yes,
go out and volunteer.
That's good, man.
Go and help someone out and serve, even when you feel the lowest, because through that service, through being able to be a blessing and not a burden to somebody else, God comes in the midst of that and starts to work on your heart and says, see, I'm using you for my glory despite your circumstance. That's what he does, man. It's amazing. And it's amazing. Like, I really appreciate you sharing, like, just like, man, I was crying in the bathroom floor. Like, that to me speaks about how hard it was, man.
Yeah.
Broken, because your identity, like you said, your identity is it's hard not to when it's what you do. It's what you you sleep, you play football, man. You're in the film room, you're lifting weights, you're young. You know, this is what you do, and to have that taken away, it's like, whoa, wait a second. Like, man, life is real.
Yeah.
And it hits you hard. And but now, you know, fast forward, you've gone through that. Your daughter's there. Is it your daughter that was 2 or 3?
Mm-hmm. My oldest daughter.
Yeah, and you were able to be a father, and that really helped you, you know, get through that adversity. Do you think, like, today, like, even right now, do you still struggle with those thoughts of why me, or do you feel like God has really healed you in this instance through your mind and spirit, man?
Yeah, I can honestly say that I don't play that record in my head often at all. You know, the only time it really, you know, because there's still a level of pain associated with it, a constant pain, like 24/7 type of pain. I don't take any medicine or anything like that. So that part can get frustrating. It could be more or less why they're like, you know, take this thorn out of my side. You know, that part that's more or less the lamenting that I find myself doing. But as far as me being, you know, all the situation that happened, and I don't really question that as much now. Of course, I would have wondered. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened, but I'm confident that I wouldn't be who I am now, the man that I am now, the relationship I have with Christ now, even the influence that I have now, if I had continued on the path that I was going on as a football player. So yeah, it was difficult. I remember when I first got hurt. Shortly after, there's another gentleman named Inky Johnson. I don't know if you ever heard of Inky Johnson.
I know about him. Similar.
Yes,
situation.
Exact same situation.
Yeah, football
actually.
too.
Football, and we have so many similarities, man. Like, me and Inky were the same age. We both played defensive back. We both hurt our right arm. We both wore number 29.
No.
Yes, like all the similarities. So the training staff at Ohio State knew the trainers at Tennessee. That's where he went. They put us in touch, and I remember talking to him on the phone. I will talk to him a lot because his injury happened a year before mine's, you know. But again, we're still the same age, you know, exactly. And he would kind of just encourage me. He said, "Man, I'm gonna use mine. I'm gonna go talk, man. I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna write me a book." And I remember him having these conversations with me, and I'm like, "Man, that's cool, man. That's awesome." You know, the time goes by, and you kind of lose touch with people. The one day I'm sitting on the couch, and Roy Hall. He's the founder of Driven Foundation here in Columbus. He was one of my teammates. He's randomly, and I talked to Roy but sporadically. He sends me a YouTube video, you know, and I pull it up and I'm watching it. And I had talked to Inky Johnson on the phone before, but I never met him, never seen him or nothing like that. And it was Eric Thomas at Michigan State University, and I think it's Inky's like most popular speech called like "Impose Your Will." So Eric Thomas is talking. He's like, "I want to introduce you to this guy, Inky Johnson." I'm like, "Oh, whoa." That's the dude. Yeah, I know him. So that was my first time ever seeing him. And it was the first time seeing somebody that looked like me doing something like amazing. And that's really where the light clicked on for me, that I didn't have to identify somebody that had a disability, man. I could still stretch myself to do all different types of things and achieve different types of goals and not limit myself by my physical abilities.
Right.
And that was just, that's where the light cut on, man. I seen that, and I just start really investing in my mind. I stopped listening to music for a couple years, literally, and I would just listen to motivational speaking, like Les Brown. I could almost knew all of his. I knew him by heart almost. I listened to it so much. I just start pumping that in my mind, and it really changed my life.
Eric Thomas too.
Yeah, Eric Thomas, Jim Rowan, Ziggs. I mean, the old school guys and the new school guys, and Inky. was listening to them.
Saturated yourself.
Yes, like when I say I cut music out, I didn't know what was popular at the time in no genre, because I just didn't listen to music. I would just every time I had a chance to listen to something, it was somebody saying something encouraging, man.
It's funny you say that because like in the mornings when I go work out, I got this podcast is like Motivation Daily.
Yeah.
And Inky's on there sometimes. Eric Thomas is on there.
Yep.
If you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. Like, that got me going, man. I love that. Man, that's insane. That I did not know. Yeah, Inky Johnson and you that much similarities. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah. So when you said, okay, so you had the injury, you didn't even know if you can get back to like tying your shoes and like because you're right-handed and all these things, mm-hmm. right? But eventually time moved on and you found yourself working at Walmart, but you were working as like an operations manager, training other managers, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess what I was going to say is describe like starting there, but then the transition of like, when do you feel like God calls you to be in the church, like as a pastor as well? Mm-hmm. So that'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah. So when I first started at Walmart, I was an operations manager in the store. So I was actually in the stores managing teams and departments. And then the opportunity came that was called the Walmart Academy, which was a new concept at Walmart where they would have trainers that would train managers before they went in the store. So I ended up getting to that role, and I genuinely enjoyed it. Like, retail is not for the faint of heart, and it wasn't for me. I'll put it like that. That schedule is so unpredictable, and especially as a salary manager. But when that role opened up, it was more structured, and I just really enjoyed investing in people, like trying to help them see the best in themselves. Like it was just something about it that I genuinely enjoyed. So when the opportunity came to work in ministry, I wasn't looking for it, because I enjoyed what I was doing, working, 7 to 5, Monday through Fridays, filling people's cup, being able to leave, come back. I mean, it was just, I thought, this is where I need to be, because I thought, like, I want to be a motivational speaker. This is going to prepare me the best way I can, because I'm talking to people all day. I'm teaching them. I'm facilitating every day. So I thought that was preparing me for, motivational speaking. But I remember I ended up getting in contact with Pastor Kyle Young at the Hilliard location. It was how we met. One of my former teammates was already going to Rock City. The church was looking for an Ohio State football player to speak at the Hilliard Chamber of Commerce. I lived in Hilliard, so my friend connected me and Kyle, and that's how the first time I met Kyle Young and ever heard about Rock City Church. And he's like, "Hey man, you should come sometime, man." And we will meet for breakfast and just meet up. And then I finally start coming. And we were still meeting and became real good friends with him over the course of the next year or two. And then one day he just reached out to me, saying, "Man, you ever thought about working in ministry?" And it was just, the timing was just perfect timing, because I was walking out of Walmart. We just had our third daughter, and I had 6 weeks paternity leave. So I was just literally leaving the building to start my 6 weeks. And he called me like, "Hey man, you ever thought about working?" I'm like, "Nope, never have."
But I got some time.
Yes, exactly. That's what it was. I'm like, "Hey, but I'll come for some interviews. I could be there." So he's like, "All right." So I just started going in for the interviews, really. Yeah. Came in for the interviews, not knowing what to expect. I knew it was, from my experience on Sundays and everything, it was just good. It felt so good to be around those people. And I said, "Man, I can only imagine if this is what the environment is like at church. What is it like to work with people? How much more can I grow if I were around these people constantly?" So I went to the interviews, and long story short, they ended up asking me if I want to, come on as a location director. So I'm like, let me talk to my wife about it. And it just turned out to be a perfect fit, And I mean, when I say everything lined up, I wasn't looking to leave Walmart at that time, because I enjoyed doing what I was doing. I enjoyed investing in people, and it was just, now you get to invest in people on such a higher level, not a higher level, but a more eternal level, something that can impact their attorney and their families. At Walmart, I'm teaching you how to be a good manager in the store, to make sure the shelves are filled, to make sure your product is ordered. But at the church, man, I get to introduce you to something that can change your life forever and your eternity, man. So it was just so much more of an opportunity to walk in that same passion, but on a deeper level, man. So.
And now you're there baptizing people, man.
Now I'm there.
You're up on stage, with the mic and everything, man.
Who would have known, man? It's just sitting back and, just observing and walking arm in arm, hand in hand with Christ and seeing where he's going to lead you and not trying to lead yourself. And that all comes from the intimacy of your relationship. So with any relationship, the work that you put into it is going to determine how it's going to grow.
Yeah.
So as I start spending more time in his word and just meditating on him and praying and, the better it got, the more confident and comfortable I got with just not knowing stuff. Like, oh, okay, Lord, well, your will, so yeah, that's really what the walk is. The faith walk to me is, continuously developing a reliance on Christ.
Yeah.
And inviting him ideally into every aspect of your life. But if you're not in every more and more and more. If he's not in every aspect of your life, then just find a new place to invite him into. Because in most cases, the area that you're hurting in is the area you haven't invited him into. So
that's a good word.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah, like because there's freedom in Jesus, and it's when we decide not to invite him in, we're like, you know what? You can come in this aspect of my life and these aspects, but this one right here,
I got this under control. Right.
I got it. But then you find yourself maybe acting in a certain way, or you start seeing a repetitive cycle in your life that comes over and over again, and you don't know why.
Right.
And the more that and I'm sure you have invited the Lord into your life in all aspects, and the more transparent and authentic that you can be with your faith, you start making an impact on the lives of others, man, like no other, because Christ is shining through you, through your authenticity.
Yeah.
Because you've invited him in to those aspects of your life. One thing I wanted to ask you, because you hit on it, and I feel like this is it's a deep question, but I really am interested, especially because now you're a father. You're a father now, and you have kids, and being a father even helped you get through your injury and that hard time in your life. Growing up without a father, how much did that affect you on a personal level?
I didn't realize how much it affected me, but I developed a unique perspective about men, just because I just didn't have one around that was really a go-to. So I really struggled, like when I first started playing football, and even beyond that, I struggled taking criticism from a man. It was just simple things like that I didn't ever pay attention to, but I would take it as offense anytime a coach would try to say something to me like, man, like, you want to fight or something? Like it almost, that was the trigger that it went to when they were just really trying to correct you and trying to make you a better player. But because I didn't have that male presence, now I had my uncles and stuff. I didn't live with them or anything, but I was able to look up to them as fathers and how they raised their families. But as far as from the emotional standpoint of it, I just didn't understand it. So my mom, she did all that she could, but she was still a woman raising 3 men. And she did all she could. She was so tough on us. Like, my mom was super, you would have thought she served in the military the way she raised us, man. Like, straightforward. She showed us love. She told us she loved us, gave us hugs and stuff, but it was still very, So I had to learn how to, even as a dad, I had to learn how to love my daughters as a father. And the unique thing with my wife's, her father wasn't really there. He was there, but he was absent. He was there, a presence. He had a presence, but he wasn't involved in her. So with her life as much. So even both of us just learning together what a father role looks like. And I can say that I feel like I've gotten better with each. I have 3 daughters. My oldest 15, then 10, then 3. And with each one, I feel like I'm getting better. Where my relationship with my oldest daughter, we're close, but we're not as close as with my 10-year-old. And then my 10-year-old not as close as with a 3-year-old. It's just finding different ways. Now I treat them all the same, and I tell them all I love them and give them all hugs and stuff. But it's just different, and I can tell that. And it's I put it on my learning, my learning curve of being a father. And you never figured out each kid is different in a sense too. Their personality plays into how you try to love on them and try to love them in a way which they can understand it. So, it was hard for me not having a dad. I think I could have benefited a lot from having a father figure in the house. Now, my mom did get remarried my senior year of high school. And she's still married to my stepdad, which we have a really good relationship and stuff. But again, that was my senior year of high school, so I was there for a couple months after they got married, and I was off to college. So but that father, having that father figure there, man, just to navigate me through some of the emotions, man, it would have been so valuable to my life. And it was stuff I felt like I had to learn on my own. That experience can be the best teacher, but it don't have to be the only teacher. So I could have,
would love to have a good father.
Yes,
for sure.
I could have avoided a lot of mistakes, a lot of missteps that I took, having that leadership. And I think that was really what really helped me initially into growing back in my faith. One of the gentlemen I worked with, so prior to going to Walmart, I worked at Nationwide I did mutual fund exchanges on the phone. And one of the gentlemen I worked with there, his dad pastored a church in Bell Fountain. And this dude used to get on my nerves, my last nerves at work, but he invited me to church, and I started going to his church, driving 45 minutes every Sunday to his church. And his dad was the pastor, and he was a dad. Like, he was probably about the same age as my dad, but he was a dad, like, just looked out for us. I mean, it was unique, very unique in that setting. And he just loved on me and my wife. And I remember he would come over our house here in Columbus, our apartment, and I remember him telling us, and it's crazy because now we're in real estate and we flip houses and all this stuff, and we were 40, 50 houses in at this point, but we were staying in an apartment, and we thought that we didn't see beyond that apartment. But we remember him coming over and say, "You ever thought about buying a house?" And we were like, no, never. Like, it never even crossed our mind to even buy a house. But he was the one that planted that seed even in our hearts of home ownership. So it's just different stuff that a father can do or a man can do that's filling that role. That's just so valuable for the development of an adolescent and a young adult. But I'm trying to be the best. Man. Yes.
I mean, like, you start looking at the statistics of households without a father, and a lot of people go to jail.
Yeah.
I mean, drugs. I mean, you name it, and it's there. And you're a walking testimony then, because you're at where you're at right now. The grace of God has been upon your life, obviously, because you could have went down a certain way, easy.
Yep.
But God's hand's been upon you. Even though you've seen the ups and downs and the trials, you can still look back and say, "Wow, Lord, you were working here. And you've saved me, not just from my sins, but just from a lot of things as well." And yeah, man, also because God is Father, right?
Yes.
And that was probably kind of a hard concept maybe to see God as that as well, right?
And I recognize that even when trying to minister to other people, like trying to present God as a father, and their perspective of their father is so far from anything that would even merely be attractive.
Wow.
Or merely they want to be involved in. So yeah, it's a hard concept to grasp when you haven't experienced a really loving father that's there for you at every moment. Now, again, I'll share with earlier. Me and my dad now have a really good relationship, and
your real dad.
Yep. He stays here in Columbus.
About that. Okay.
Yeah, he stays here in Columbus, man, and we talk frequently, and I look out for him, and he come over my house and all that, man. We've always had a pretty decent relationship, but it's probably closer now than it's ever been. But yeah, so and I had one of the gentlemen in my small group say this, and he was saying, like, it wasn't until he stopped expecting from his father what his father couldn't give that he was able to really enjoy his father. So I'm like, and my dad will admit it, like, he just wasn't there enough mentally, like he was still there for himself, but he wasn't able to be there for others. You know, in that season, which we all got our life to live, man, and some learn faster than others. So there's grace in that. I don't hold him to it. You know, I appreciate him for, you know, what he did do, for the gifts that God was able to give me through him, and you know the impact he did have on my life. Grateful for that, and grateful for the relationship we have now. But yeah.
Well, what a blessing that there's that restoration there even today of like,
Yep.
he's even willing to admit, I wasn't all the way there, man.
Yeah.
I was going through some things, and I wish I could have been. Some people don't even get that kind of
Right.
closure, you know. So you're blessed in that, and you're also a father as well, which some people wish to be fathers and can't be either. So there's always something to be thankful for. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
On both sides. It's your perspective on it, man. I remember growing up, and I was saying, I told myself, my kids will never have to wonder where their dad is at. Like, I wanted to be the exact opposite of my dad growing up. And most kids, either they fall on one side or the other of that, you know, dynamic. Either they want to be just like their dad or end up being just like him, or they want to be nothing like him. Total opposite. And I fell on that total opposite end. Like, yo, my kids ain't never going to wonder where I'm at. They ain't never going to want. Like, that was something I was adamant about even growing, you know, as a young kid. So
right.
Yeah.
Which that's a good thing, at least, because you're going to be like, man, I'm not going to be like my father, and the negative aspects of things. Yep. And I've even talked to my friends about that. Like, some of my friends' parents have went through divorce, and they're like, man, I'm never going to do that. And I hope they don't ever. But like, the fact that they're even saying that out loud is like, I don't ever want to be divorced like my parents were, or I don't want to be so angry and have these outbursts of anger like my father did whenever I have my kids. You know, I've heard these things from my friends, and it's like, there's a real restoration going on in the people of God today. As much as, you know, there's bad out there on the news, and of course we live in a crazy world, but like, it just depends on what you focus on, man.
There you go, man. There's a lot of good going on too.
There's so much good. I can go on and on. There's so many testimonies like that my friends have had just in the past month of just like healing, and like, and same even for me. It's like, God's working, man. And so, hey, man, you've come on the show and you've blessed the show, and I kind of want to ask this question because I just feel like it's a good question for the listeners to have, especially from someone who's gone through adversity. But like, like, what's one piece of advice you'd give to people who are looking to walk in victory, which means, you know, wholeness and confidence and security in who they are? What's something that you would tell the listeners that they can do?
Well, you can't find out. I believe that it's difficult to find out who you are until you find out who made you. You know, so in order to figure out who you really are, you have to go to the creator. You want to know how a particular car works, and you go to the manufacturer that made that car. You know, so, and it's the same thing with us. We get the opportunity to tap into the creator of everything, of the universe, of air. I mean, there's stuff we haven't even discovered yet on it that he already created. It just a matter when we gonna find out about it. You know, like,
it's crazy.
But we have complete and total access to him, and tapping into him will, in every case, bring out your ultimate potential.
Wow.
And your potential is what you already have. It's what he put in you already. But to tap into that, you have to go to the creator. You have to grow your relationship with them. That I do. There's something that I noticed, like, in today's time, and I think it's nothing new, I don't think, but people struggle with communicating. A lot of people just don't know how to communicate. They make assumptions, but if you can tap into how you can communicate with the creator, oh my gosh, man, like, the doors that will be open, the things that will happen, the people that you will meet, the things that'll come in alignment. Like, I honestly can't even really put words to it. It sounds like a magic trick, man. It sounds crazy, but to walk in your purpose, to figure out what that is, to figure out why were you put here on this earth, man, you only can get that from one place only.
That's the Lord himself.
That's it. That's the only place, man. And your walk is unique. Don't get caught up in trying to be what somebody else's, walk was like, or they speaking in tongues or whatever it might, or they pray for 2 hours every morning. Like, I've been there in that spot where I didn't feel like I was growing fast enough because I didn't spend as much time with God as this other person. I didn't pray as long, or I didn't read the Bible as much, or I didn't know these scriptures by heart. No, your walk is your walk. And again, I say as a father, my relationship with each one of my kids is unique because they are unique. Yeah. So I wouldn't expect one to do what the other one is doing. So, and it's the same way with Christ, man. Our walk is unique. So just do a little bit. Let's start with a little bit. One step. Can you break out 5 minutes out of your schedule?
Yeah.
To spend some time with you. If you're not spending any time with them right now, one of my friends at the church, anytime I go to him with any type of really question or issue or circumstance, he said, "What's your Jesus time like?" That's his first question he asked me. What's your Jesus time like? And that's what I'm asking you. What is your Jesus time like? When you're running into different, what's your Jesus time like? And normally that will be a direct reflection of some of the things you're constantly dealing with. Not just the things you're dealing with, but the things you're repetitively dealing with. Like the mountains you keep falling down. Like you getting up halfway and falling down it again. Getting up, that's tap into that relationship, man. It's free. It's free.
We have access through His Son.
We have access through the Son, and it's so free. It's free indeed, man. Wow. And nothing. They say nothing in life is free, man. The best thing in life
is free, man. Wow. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that, man. And people need to hear that because there's a lot of doubt and a lot of unbelief that people have in their minds. And doubt and unbelief will destroy you, man. Like we think, oh, I don't believe that. That's his belief. Or believing the truth matters, man. And knowing, having a relationship with Jesus and communicating with him matters. And so anyone who's listening to this, don't believe that you're stuck in your situation. Don't believe that it can't be me. I have this issue going on and this issue going on and I'm sick or whatever that may look like. Like God's heart for all of us, all of his children, is to restore us.
Yes.
Take your situation, whatever you're going through, and hold it up to the Word of God and challenge it with the Word of God and see what happens. Start reading out loud the scriptures out loud and saying, Lord, I don't want to believe this. I don't know how to believe this, but you said it.
Yep.
Help me believe it and see what happens. Man,
that's good, man.
I really appreciate you, Shaun.
Yes,
2 Shauns, man. Like, couldn't be any better. Yeah. To the listeners, thank you so much for listening to Walking in Victory. Please rate and review the podcast or like the video on YouTube. It means a lot, and we want to share this with people as well. Share it with your friends. Post it on your social media if you'd like, because my goal really is to make an impact on the lives of other people. And even if it's just one person, I'm blessed for it. But I'd rather be more than one, because there's victory and there's freedom for a lot of people if they want it. And so please share with a friend or with a family member. And yeah, thank you so much for the support and listening in. I hope you have a blessed day.